You have watched people who work harder than you make less than you. You have watched someone launch a business with no plan, no experience, no real effort, and somehow succeed. You have watched someone else pour everything they have into something, their time, their savings, their years of preparation, and watch it fall apart for reasons they cannot explain. And you have sat with the question that nobody around you wants to answer honestly. Why? Why does life seem easy for some people and relentlessly difficult for others? Why do some people seem to be followed by good fortune the way a shadow follows a person in sunlight? And why do others, people who are good people, honest people, hardworking people, people who have done nothing to deserve difficulty, seem to be followed by struggle no matter what they try? This question has broken more people than poverty itself. Because poverty, you can sometimes fight your way out of. But not understanding why you are in it, not understanding why the same walls keep appearing no matter which direction you run, that is what truly destroys a person. The feeling that life is rigged against you specifically, and that nobody can tell you why. Today I am going to tell you why. Not the surface answers, not work harder and think positively, not God is testing you and your reward is in heaven. The deep truth, the real mechanics of why some lives flow and others grind, and what you can actually do, starting from where you are right now, to change the frequency you are living on. Stay with me all the way to the end of this video, because the answer I am going to give you is not comfortable. But it is the most useful thing you will ever hear about money, about luck, and about why your life has been the way it has been. Let me say this first so we are completely clear. Most people who are poor are not poor because they are lazy, not because they are unworthy, not because God has forgotten them or punished them, not because they lack intelligence or talent or drive. Most people who are struggling financially are struggling for a reason that goes far deeper than any of those surface explanations. And understanding the real reason is the beginning of being able to change it. The real reason is this: they are operating from a frequency of lack that was installed in them before they were old enough to question it. And that frequency is running their entire relationship with money, opportunity, and abundance without them ever being aware that it is happening. Here is what I mean. Every human being is born into a field of consciousness, not just a family and a neighborhood and a country, a consciousness field, an energetic inheritance that carries the dominant beliefs, expectations, fears, and limitations of every generation that came before them. Before you spoke your first word, before you formed your first memory, you were already absorbing the frequency of the environment you were born into. If that environment carried the frequency of there is never enough, money is hard to get and easy to lose, people like us do not get ahead, rich people are different from us, you have to struggle to survive, that frequency entered you before your conscious mind had any defense against it. It became the background operating system of your relationship with money and with life itself. And here is the critical thing about that operating system. It does not feel like a belief you chose. It feels like reality. It feels like an accurate description of how the world actually works. When you have been living inside a particular frequency your entire life, that frequency does not feel like a frequency. It feels like truth. The person who grew up in a household where money was always scarce and always anxious did not choose to believe that money is hard. They absorbed that reality through thousands of daily experiences across their entire childhood. Every conversation about bills, every moment of anxiety at the checkout counter, every comparison between what they had and what others had. Every time a dream was dismissed as unrealistic. All of that accumulated into a deeply grooved relationship with lack that now runs invisibly beneath every financial decision they make. And then this person grows up and tries to build a financial life. And they work hard. And they make some progress. And then something happens that takes it away. Or an opportunity comes and something in them pulls back from it at the critical moment. Or they succeed to a certain level and then unconsciously find a way to return to the familiar territory of struggle. Not because they want to fail, but because their inner operating system, their frequency, their deeply held expectation of what is possible for someone like them is running underneath the effort and steering the outcome. This is not weakness. This is the mechanics of consciousness operating exactly as it is designed to operate. The inner state creates the outer reality, not sometimes, not partially, always, completely, without exception. Now, what about the people who seem lucky? the ones who succeed at almost everything they touch. Where does that come from? You asked why some people get lucky with almost everything they do, no matter how small, while others fail even when they plan and prepare carefully. And the honest answer has two layers. One that is about this lifetime, and one that goes much deeper than this lifetime. The first layer, the frequency they were born into. The person who seems to be followed by luck was almost always born into, or early in life absorbed, a completely different frequency relationship with possibility. Where the struggling person absorbed there is never enough, and people like us do not get ahead, the fortunate person absorbed something different, even if they were not wealthy. Even if their family had very little materially, they absorbed the frequency of things work out for me. Good things find me. When I try something, it tends to go well. There is always a way through. I am the kind of person things happen for. That frequency, absorbed in early life and running invisibly beneath every action they take, does something extraordinary. It makes them bold where others hesitate. It makes them persistent where others give up. It makes them interpret setbacks as temporary where others interpret them as confirmation that they were right to doubt themselves. And it makes them visible to opportunity in a way that people running on a lower frequency are not. Because opportunity does not come to people who cannot see it. And what you can see is entirely determined by the frequency you are operating on. The lucky person is not lucky in the cosmic lottery sense. They are operating on a frequency that produces outcomes that look like luck from the outside. That frequency was their inheritance, just as the struggling person's frequency was their inheritance. Different inheritances, different outcomes, same amount of human effort. The second layer, what the soul brings from beyond this life. Now here is the layer that most people are not ready to hear, and I am going to say it anyway because it is true and it is important. The soul does not begin with birth. The soul arrives at birth carrying everything it has developed across its entire journey of experience. Its accumulated wisdom, its established patterns, its unresolved lessons, and its relationship with the fundamental creative force of existence, with the ultimate consciousness, built up or diminished across more experience than any single lifetime contains. A soul that has spent many lifetimes developing its alignment with the source, learning to live from trust rather than fear, learning to give generously rather than grasp desperately, learning to see abundance as the natural state rather than scarcity as the expected one. That soul arrives in a new lifetime already carrying a relationship with the creative force of existence that produces what looks to other people like effortless good fortune. It is not effortless. The effort was done, in other times, in other forms. The harvest is being collected now. And a soul that arrives carrying deep unresolved patterns of fear, of separation from the source, of generations of poverty consciousness absorbed and never examined, that soul faces a different starting position. Not as punishment, as the current chapter in a longer story. A chapter that can absolutely be rewritten, but only when the soul understands what it is actually dealing with. This is why some children are born into circumstances of almost magical ease, and others are born into difficulty that seems to have nothing to do with anything they chose or deserved in this lifetime. The soul came in with a different starting frequency. The external circumstances reflect the internal state, not of this personality in this lifetime, of the soul across its full journey. The most important thing to understand about this is what it implies for what you can do about it. Because if the frequency was inherited either from family or from the soul's own history, it can be changed. Frequencies are not permanent. They are patterns, and patterns can be recognized, understood, and transformed, starting now, in this lifetime, by you. You asked directly whether connecting to the ultimate consciousness can make you lucky in everyday life. And the answer is yes, but not in the way the prosperity gospel preachers will tell you. Not by reciting specific prayers and expecting specific material rewards in return. The relationship between the source and your material life is real, but it operates through a completely different mechanism than most people have been taught. Here is the mechanism. The ultimate consciousness is not separate from the material world. It is the substance of the material world. Everything you see around you, the opportunity that found the person you thought was just lucky, the series of connections that led to the right job, the timing that made the investment work, the stranger who appeared at exactly the right moment. All of it is the field of the source expressing itself through the physical dimension. The material world is not separate from consciousness. It is consciousness in its densest and slowest form. When you genuinely connect to the source within you, when you access that deep stillness and operate from that place consistently, you are not asking an external force to change your external circumstances from the outside. You are changing the frequency from which you participate in the field. And when your frequency changes, what the field organizes around you changes. Because the field always organizes itself in correspondence with the dominant frequency of the consciousness inhabiting it. This is what people call luck from the outside. From the inside, it is alignment. It is the natural result of a consciousness that is no longer running on the frequency of fear and lack and separation from the source, and is instead operating from a frequency that matches the natural abundance and flow of the ultimate consciousness itself. The source is not scarce. The source has no experience of not enough. The source is the infinite creativity and abundance of existence itself. When you are genuinely connected to it, when your inner frequency begins to match it, the experience of scarcity and difficulty begins to shift. Not because you said the right words, because your fundamental relationship with reality has changed. And here is the practical truth about how this works in daily life. It does not happen all at once. It begins with small things. The parking space that appears. The conversation that leads somewhere unexpected. The right information arriving at the right moment. The door that opens where there was no door before. These are not coincidences. They are the field responding to your changing frequency. And as you notice them and acknowledge them and allow yourself to trust them, the frequency rises further. And the field responds with larger and more significant expressions of the same alignment. This is what the people you have watched succeed at everything they touch are experiencing from the inside. Not luck. A fundamental frequency match between their inner state and the creative abundance of the source. You can develop this. It is not a gift given to some and withheld from others. It is a frequency that can be cultivated. And here is exactly how. Now we arrive at the most practical and most important part of this conversation, because understanding why things are the way they are is only valuable if it leads to knowing what to actually do differently. So let me be very specific. The first practice: find the frequency of lack inside you and name it. Before you can change your frequency, you have to know what it actually is. Not what you wish it was. What it actually is right now underneath the surface. Sit quietly and ask yourself honestly. When I think about money, what is the first feeling that arrives before any thought? Not the first thought, the first feeling. Fear is a frequency. Anxiety is a frequency. Resentment is a frequency. Hopelessness is a frequency. Whatever arrives before the thought, that is your current operating frequency in this area. Then ask where that feeling comes from. Whose voice is behind it? Whose experience did you absorb it from? Your mother's worry about bills. Your father's belief that hard work is always hard. Your community's shared understanding that wealth belongs to other people. The feeling has a source, and naming the source is the beginning of being able to separate yourself from it. Because it was never yours, it was given to you before you were old enough to refuse it. You cannot change what you have not named. Name it. Look at it directly. Say to yourself clearly, this is the frequency I have been operating on. This is the inheritance I received. And then say the most important words. This is not the truth about what is possible for me. This is the truth about what was believed by the people who shaped me. And I am choosing something different now. That choice, made consciously, genuinely, with the full weight of honest self-awareness, is not nothing. It is the first crack in a frequency that has been running unchallenged for years or decades. The first crack is everything. The second practice. Cultivate genuine gratitude for what already exists. I am not talking about listing things you are grateful for in a journal as a daily exercise. I am talking about something much more specific and much more powerful. Genuine felt gratitude for what is already present in your life, accessed in the body, not performed in the mind. The frequency of genuine gratitude is one of the highest frequencies a human being can generate, and it is incompatible with the frequency of lack. You cannot genuinely feel grateful and simultaneously feel that there is not enough. They cannot occupy the same inner space at the same moment. When genuine gratitude is present, lack dissolves. Not permanently at first, but in the moment. And in that moment, your frequency shifts, and the field responds to the shift. Here's how to do this in a way that is real rather than performed. Find the one thing in your life right now that if it were taken away tomorrow, you would miss with your entire being. Not the things you wish you had. The things you already have that you have stopped noticing because they have always been there. Your ability to see, to breathe without thinking about it, a person who loves you, your own mind, the simple fact that you woke up today when others did not. Take that one thing and hold it in your awareness. Feel what it would be like to not have it. Feel the loss of it, and then feel the reality that you still have it. Let that land in your chest. Let it become physical. Let the gratitude be felt rather than thought. Stay in that feeling for 2 minutes. That is enough to shift your frequency. Do it every morning before you look at your phone, before you face the day, before the surface noise of life covers it over. 2 minutes of genuine felt gratitude is worth more to your frequency than 2 hours of positive affirmations said over a foundation of fear. The third practice. Begin to give from whatever you have. This one will feel counterintuitive to someone who does not have enough, and I understand that. But listen to what I am actually saying. The frequency of scarcity is built on the belief that what you have is all there is, and giving it away means having less. That belief is a closed loop. It is the experience of someone who believes they are separate from the source, separate from the infinite creative abundance of existence. The act of giving, even small, even from very little, is an act of declaring with your actions rather than just your words that you are not separate from the source. That abundance is not a fixed quantity that gets depleted when you share it, that you trust that what you give moves through you and returns in a form you cannot predict but will recognize when it arrives. Every genuinely wealthy person in history who has spoken honestly about what shifted their fortune has said some version of this. The moment they began giving from what they had, even before they had much, was the moment something changed. Not because a universal vending machine rewarded their generosity with money, but because the act of giving shifted their frequency from scarcity to abundance, from closed fist to open hand, and an open hand receives in a way a closed fist never can. Give what you can. Time, skills, encouragement, the small amount of money you have available when someone needs it more. Give without calculating the return. Give because you are choosing to declare that you are not separated from the flow of the source. And watch what begins to move differently in your life. The fourth practice. Change how you speak about your life. Your words are not descriptions of your reality. They are instructions to the field about what to build next. Every time you say, "I am always broke," the field receives that as a directive. Every time you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," the field receives that as a pattern to maintain. Every time you say, "People like me do not get ahead," the field receives that as a specification. This is not about pretending your circumstances are better than they are. It is about refusing to use the power of your voice to reinforce the frequency you are trying to change. When you speak about your financial life, speak about it in terms of what it is moving toward, not in terms of what it has been. Not "I am rich" when you are not, but "I am building something real. Things are beginning to shift. I am not where I was. I am moving." Those statements are true. They are honest. And they carry a completely different frequency than the statements of permanent limitation that most people use to describe their lives without even noticing they are doing it. The people you have watched succeed at everything they touch speak about their lives differently than struggling people do. Not because they are deluded, because they are aligned with what they are moving toward rather than anchored to what they have been through. The fifth practice. Access the source within and bring your life into that space. Everything I have described in this video, the frequency of lack, the inherited consciousness, the way the field responds to inner state, all of it points to the same ultimate solution. Genuine sustained contact with the ultimate consciousness within you. Because the source has no experience of lack. The source is abundance itself, connection itself, flow itself. When you go into the stillness and genuinely touch the source within, even briefly, you are touching a frequency of such complete sufficiency that there is no room in it for the experience of not enough. And the more consistently you access that frequency through the daily practice of inner stillness, the more it begins to become your baseline. Your default, the ground you stand on rather than the occasional peak you briefly visit. When the frequency of the source becomes your baseline, your relationship with opportunity changes. Your relationship with people changes. Your relationship with money changes. Not because you learned better financial strategies, because you changed the frequency from which you participate in the field. and the field always responds to the frequency it receives. The most fortunate people you have ever known are not fortunate because the universe decided to play favorites. They are fortunate because something about their inner state, whether inherited, developed in this lifetime, or carried from beyond this lifetime, aligns more closely with the natural abundance of the source. And that alignment produces what looks from the outside like luck. You can develop that alignment now. Regardless of where you started, regardless of what your family believed, regardless of how long the struggle has been going on, the frequency is not locked. It is a pattern, and every pattern can be changed by the consciousness that recognizes it. You came in asking why some people are born into luck and others into struggle, why some succeed at everything they touch and others work hard their entire lives and cannot break through. Here is the truth. Most people who are poor are not poor because they failed. They are poor because they are running on a frequency of lack that was handed to them before they were old enough to question it. By their family, by their community, by generations of people who never knew why they were struggling either and so handed the pattern forward unchanged. The people who seem lucky are not the recipients of cosmic favoritism. They are operating on a frequency that aligns more closely with the natural abundance of the source. That frequency produces the outcomes that look like luck from the outside. And yes, connecting to the ultimate consciousness within you can change this. Not as a magic trick, as the most fundamental transformation available to a human life. When the frequency of the source becomes the ground you stand on, the field around you begins to reorganize itself around that frequency. Opportunity finds you differently. People respond to you differently. Doors that were closed begin to open. Not because the world changed, because you changed. From the inside, at the level that actually runs everything. Start with gratitude. Start with naming the frequency of lack that was given to you. Start with giving from whatever you have. Start with changing how you speak about your life. Start with the daily practice of going inward and touching the stillness where the source lives. None of these are big dramatic actions. All of them are available to you today regardless of your circumstances. And every one of them is a step away from the frequency that has been limiting you and toward the frequency that produces what the world calls luck and what those living it call simply home. You were not born to struggle forever. The struggle is not who you are. It is the frequency you inherited. And you are not your inheritance. You are the consciousness that can choose something different. That choice is available right now. Share this with someone who has been working hard their entire life and cannot understand why it is not enough. Subscribe to Truth Frequency AI and come back, because every truth we uncover together is another layer of the frequency of lack that dissolves in the light of what is actually real.